I had never used a smartphone at that time when I got out. I had got a little taste of programming, but it was in a very stale, it wasn't like I had never used a smartphone. I was like technologically illiterate.
This is Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp, where I help tech professionals in their 20s and 30s balance a great life today without sacrificing their future possibilities. I'm your host, Lucas Caceres, certified financial planner and founder of Level Up Financial Planning, where I help educate, coach, and build strategies with my clients to help them take their financial confidence to the next level.
Disclaimer alert. This information's for education, so don't just go use it. First consult with your financial advisor, because that's way more legit. That's it.
That was Orlando Gomez, and you can catch him in Season 3, Episode 4 on how he broke into tech by writing a jingle. Hello, before I start this episode off, I just have a quick announcement. I haven't done this in a few years, and I'm actually launching registration for an end-of-year tax planning workshop series to help you control and reduce your taxes prior to the end of the year. This will be 3 workshops starting in November, and we'll be tackling understanding your taxes, learn about retirement accounts, and the secret backdoor Roths that a lot of my tech clients are able to use. Sometimes they can do mega backdoor Roths inside of your 401k. Also, if you have employer stock, we'll cover tax strategies on how to sell and what the impacts of receiving those are. Especially if you're not familiar with them, these will be super helpful as you navigate your career. And finally, we will be tackling charitable contribution strategies, which is super relevant. I'm going to have a handful of nonprofit guests on from the Collab Lab, Underdog Devs, Tech by Choice, and the Kapoor Center. So I'm excited for all of those interviews and kind of all the insights you'll see behind the scenes as far as what it takes to be a part of a nonprofit, how you can help out and contribute. And you'll be surprised. It's not all just about money. You can give back in other ways. And so I hope you enjoy these next few episodes. And if you're interested in signing up, definitely register before prices go up. Right now, it's $30 for all 3 workshops, and all the proceeds go to a nonprofit. So not trying to make money on this, but it's a cool opportunity for me to educate folks and make sure that you're more informed as far as how taxes work. Because I know that sometimes it's like a mystery as far as how taxes come out when you file your taxes. And so I'll actually walk you through all that. The link will be in the show notes. You can find out more information and reserve your spot before prices increase on October 6th. Hope you can join us. Hello, thank you for joining Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp. I'm excited. I have a good friend of the show on today. His name is Rick Wolter. Rick is a software developer who specializes in mobile application development for Apple platforms. He's formerly incarcerated and passionate about helping those from disadvantaged backgrounds, particularly the formerly incarcerated, become software developers. He also is part of Underdog Devs, a nonprofit dedicated to helping those from disadvantaged backgrounds get hired as developers. Hello, thank you for joining Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp. I'm super excited to have my friend Rick on today. Rick is a software developer who specializes in mobile application development for Apple platforms. He's formerly incarcerated, and he's passionate about helping those from disadvantaged backgrounds, particularly the formerly incarcerated, become software developers. He also is part of Underdog Devs, a nonprofit dedicated to helping those from disadvantaged backgrounds get hired as developers. Hey, Rick, thanks for coming on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lucas.
Yeah, so I kind of gave you a little intro. We know a little bit about you right now. I want you to go back kind of 10 years from now. So 10 years into the past, what was kind of your situation? What was going on? What were you thinking at that time?
Let's see, 10 years. What year is it? 2013, I was incarcerated. I was getting out in the end of 2016. I was preparing. And that was kind of a short time for me, 13 to 16, considering I had a 21-year sentence where I only did 18 years of the 21. So that really wasn't that long, right? Like I felt like you call it a short timer, right? Like
Yes.
'Cause I'm like, I got no time left. I only got 3 years left.
Holy moly.
But yeah, so I was preparing to get out, thinking about what I'm going to do when I get out, how I'm going to make a living. And I was doing that with my wife at the time, Amanda, and we were basically, I was excited thinking about getting a life when I get out and starting. I've been locked up since I was 18. So it was going to be a culture shock, and I was
Yeah.
excited about things that I had missed. And getting to do all the things that you had dreamed. When you're in there, you like, as you can imagine, like you can't wait for those days, right? Like you're
Yeah.
like picturing all the things you're gonna do, and so like it was coming to at that point in time, I felt like I was damn near free. Like
Yeah.
I felt like I was like about to step out at that
Yeah.
mark. So it was like a 3-year mark.
Holy smokes. And so was like software engineering and tech kind of even on the radar? Were you already kind of doing that, some of that career exploration 3 years from being removed there?
That was about the time. Actually, it probably was right around that time.
Oh, damn.
Just reading articles. I don't remember which. It was probably in The Economist or in like, let me think what else I read. Wall Street Journal. It was probably in something I read, but I remember reading about the demand for software engineering and the salaries, and somewhere that it seemed to be a skill that wasn't all a degree wasn't always required.
Yeah.
And so it piqued my interest, and I had Amanda sent me more and more information on it, and I'd have her look stuff up online. Like I'd get on the phone and just be like, okay, go to this website, because I'd be reading from other things, and then we go to that
Yeah.
website,
Yeah.
she'd print it, send it, and then I'd look down everything, and then the next time I call, same thing. I'd be like, hey, go to this website, go to this other
Awesome.
thing. So eventually we got to the point where I was like, okay, I like this thing, and she sent a couple books, and I'm like, I think I could do this, and I didn't have a skill at the time, because I came in when I was a kid. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I was like, I'll do this. I'll throw myself into this. And then we had a thumb drive snuck in through a guy. There's a guy who he's passed away now, Kyle McQuillan, never forget him, awesome man. And Kyle was just like, he knows if you're trying to like better yourself, if you're
Yeah.
about that. He
Yeah.
was about supporting you. Like he didn't give a damn rules. Like he didn't care about rules as long as it
Yep.
was. And so my wife got it to him, and he helped me get it in.
Yep.
And we put it on some we got Python interpreter stuck in, and some YouTube videos. And there was already some other videos on there. I think we already had Khan Academy in there.
Okay. Cool.
Like it wasn't attached to the internet. It was like standalone type version, just some
Gotcha.
videos.
Yep. Yeah, because resources are extremely limited, right? So anyone
Oh, very.
listen, don't have that background. My brother, this is how I've started to kind of accustomed to, well, like some stuff, there's more stuff that maybe people realize that you guys have access to, but still limited in a lot of ways. And so that's crazy getting that snuck in. And
Yeah.
what would have happened if they would have caught, like would have been that
Oh,
major? They just would have
it-
just destroyed it and would have been the end of it, basically.
I mean, if he got caught, he could have got a felony. He probably would have got a charge.
Oh,
Yeah, he was like taking a big risk. Yeah. Yeah, he was taking a big risk. It was looking back, I'm like, I'm surprised I was like, because it's kind of selfish to even ask someone to do that. But like,
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I was in the moment, and I was like, hey, this will be awesome. And you don't get caught often. You don't plan to get caught. So I just
Sure.
assumed, this was a foolproof plan. I got to all thumb drive, right? And he
Yep.
brings in lots of stuff that he's
Yep.
allowed to bring in
Yep.
because he was over some programs. So he brought that in, and then I put it on the computers. They were in the stroke treatment center. They had old computers. They weren't really used for much. So we
Yeah.
put it on the computers, and I started learning to program, to code.
And so you didn't have like the Google, right? So when you ran into stuff, like how did you kind of get past some of those walls that traditional people would run into, and then they'd go and Google, they'd ask someone, they'd YouTube it.
You don't. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like you just don't have any significant. I didn't have any significant advance like in my learning in there. Like it was
Yep.
just an introduction. That's all it basically did, was give me an exposure and made
Yep.
me
Yep.
like whet my appetite, made me think that like hey, I could do this. I wasn't you really like, I mean, I thought I was. It wasn't until I got out and I recognized what you're talking about,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you Google constantly. You're
Yeah.
constantly looking stuff up. And it wasn't until then that I realized like, I really didn't make any advancements in there. Like not real advancements. I
Well,
wasn't like went from I wasn't in like a further along. It was just exposure. But that was fine. And
yep.
I think that's a big deal, because if I didn't have that, I
Yep.
probably wouldn't have had the interest when I got out and the determination to like throw myself into it. But I mean, I was writing little mini programs. Like they were just, scripts, like Python stuff that did, the stuff you learn that everyone learns when they learn to code,
Yep. The
thing like
intros.
do a
Yep.
loop and do this and print this and whatever. So I was doing all that, which was cool. And it definitely did make me want to do it more and gave me the confidence. Like, okay, this isn't some arcane.
Yeah.
This isn't only for wizards. This is for like a
Yep.
regular person that just pays attention. If you just put some time into it, you can learn it too.
Yeah, and so what was that transition then? You had the intro, the snuck in contraband, so you could start whetting your appetite, getting some exposure, learning that like, whoa, yeah, like I can do some magic myself, and yeah, you probably felt like pretty strong in that until you kind of came out in the real world and be like, okay, that was like lighting a match or something, and there's a lot more that can be done and a lot more you have to figure out. What was that next up? You're out, you actually got free reign now. Now you do have access to Google, you have access to YouTube and things like that. What was that kind of next step?
Yeah, so when I got out, I realized like obviously you have to work, right? Like not shocking, right? Like I realized like, okay, damn, I'm gonna have to work to get by. I moved in with Amanda, my wife, and she was just graduating law school and was preparing for the bar exam. So
Holy moly.
so we had a lot of stress and not a lot of money. We didn't have
Sure.
a lot of money at
Yep.
the time. And so what I did is I worked part time with some friends doing like sound setup. I worked some doing like some seawalls, building coquina seawalls. I did that when I was young. So I did that a little bit. But what I did to like set myself up so that I could spend time studying was I enrolled in the local community college and
Yep.
they have like a associates in science for programming or whatever.
Nice.
And it's not going to impress anyone, but it did allow me to sign up for like the Pell Grant. It allowed me to sign up for like a lot of different financial support, a lot of loans too. Like I was taking all
Yeah.
max loans,
Yeah.
but at least and I would take like lots, the full load, so I get the most amount
Mhm.
of the loans that were available. And what that did was just allow me to study and not have to work full, 40, 50 hours
Yeah.
just to get by. It allowed
Yep.
us to like, we still weren't doing it. We still were going in debt. Obviously, I was taking
Yep.
loans, but it did allow me to focus. And so I was doing that in class, learning programming there. And then in my spare time, I was doing it all the time. Like I would read stuff till 3 in the morning, like staring at the screen, falling asleep. Yeah, it was like I was excited because
Yeah.
I all of a sudden had all this access to information that I never had access to up until when I was a teenager. And when I was a teenager, I wasn't on that, right? Like I was on something
Yeah, well, I
different. So
mean, even like what was the internet back then? Like trying to remember, like a lot of the stuff is like probably
oh,
just started rolling out like around then, where it was like really robust, like it is today.
yeah, it was nothing. It was nothing. Yeah, like nobody was like it wasn't a big deal. And so for me, when I got out and got went to using it, it was empowering. I was like, damn, this is really cool. This is fun. And like the access to any information I want was empowering. Yeah, it was.
Awesome. And so, community college, you went to a boot camp, right?
Yes.
Ultimately, so
Mhm.
what
So
was
I,
that?
I was doing that at the same time actually, because the boot camp was free. Yeah.
Boot camps are brutal though. So yeah, you're stacking coursework, like traditional coursework at
Mhm.
community college, full schedule there, and then a boot camp on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, the community college stuff wasn't very rigorous. Like, it wasn't that hard. I did transfer after I got my AS into a computer science program, a
Mhm.
state university computer science program, and which actually had some rigorous coursework. That got hard, and that's when like, in fact, I was one of my teachers who also was a friend of mine from Orlando. One of the first people I met, Ben Golke. You might know him from Twitter. Ben was like, you got to drop something. Like you can't.
Yep,
This is crazy. You're like trying to work a little bit, and you're also doing the
yep,
CS program, and you're doing like a full time boot camp.
yep,
So I stopped the CS, continued with the boot camp, started working for the boot camp as like a TL, like a I forget what they're called, team TL, whatever. It's
yep,
basically where you lead like a small group. You teach the material. You don't teach it. Like they have instructors, full time instructors, but then
yep,
they hire students that were a little more advanced further in the program
yep.
to like guide the rest of them and like be there for them to help and that kind of thing. So I got started getting paid for that. Once I did that, it kind of was smooth sailing because now you're getting paid to learn. And
Yeah,
so,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
that was the goal, like, and so once I did that, we were good. I didn't go back to finish the CS program. I almost completed it. I still think about maybe finishing it at some point, but didn't
Yep.
finish it. And yeah, I just kept on with the boot camp.
Yeah, at this point, right? How many years of experience do you have now as a software developer being paid?
If I count that, like in my resume, I count that, which probably shouldn't, because I
Yeah,
wasn't like building software for a company. I was just
sure.
teaching. But I
Yeah,
do have it on my resume. You can bet
yep.
that's on my anything that like I was paid for, I put on my resume. I even put like I was a programming tutor at the college, and it
Yep.
was unpaid, but I even put that on early on because I had
And
nothing else to put on there. So
yep.
I put
Well, and yeah, I'm not a career coach or anything like that, but yeah, early on, if there's nothing else, and even now, if there's enough room on it, sure, throw it at just the last thing just to show like you have
right.
more than even just what you have, because yeah, you have to show something, right? You can't submit a blank
Yeah.
resume like, oh, I've done nothing, applied
Yep.
nothing, give me a job for software engineering and pay me a lot of money for it. So
Right.
yeah, I definitely think super normal to put those things because it's more than what other people are doing too that are at that same stage more or less, but
Sure.
you definitely wanna get credit for that.
But to answer your question, yeah, that was about 4.5 years if I count that.
Oh,
Otherwise, it was in 2020, January of 20, basically, like right around the time I started working as a software engineer, was hired.
yeah.
And so now, we're going on 2023 or whatever. But that was actually getting paid as a software engineer. Whereas before that was the tutor role at the boot camp I was at.
Nice. Well, and yeah, even just kind of, I'm sure it's gonna haunt you probably no matter what we say or talk about, but at this point, you've shown you can do the job, you have
Yeah.
the skills and tools. Like, the degree, like, I literally that's a certification behind me. I don't even know where my degree is. It's in one of these things behind me, but, like, I've never looked at it. No one's ever asked me for it, like, ever said. Yeah, once you show and you have the actual work experience, of those things matter way less. Awesome. What was it like navigating? So finish the boot camp, getting paid to kind of finish that too. That is super sweet. But what was it like finding a job after that with having a background?
It didn't come up as much as I thought, mainly because, I mean, it did come up when people knew me. But it didn't come up as much as I thought because it happened so long ago
Yep.
that it doesn't come back in my background checks.
Oh,
So,
okay.
like, you could look me up on Florida Department of Corrections. You
Yep.
can look my name up, you can look up any inmate in Florida. And so you
Yep.
can see released inmates, look me up, see my charges, and you can see whatever. But it wasn't the same kind of problem. Now, the first job I did get, I, it was a discussion. They even discussed it with the rest of the people that worked there.
Yeah.
Because it was a on-site company. They basically asked everyone like, "Hey, are you okay with him being here?" And everybody was fine.
Yeah.
They're like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
I was lucky. I was very lucky though. It wasn't like anything I did. It was my friend, one of my friend I grew up with, his wife worked there. And so she
Gotcha.
basically vouched for him. Let's get him an interview, and like my husband knew him growing up. He has a set of circumstances that when explained will make you kind of be a little less judgmental of like the charge. I mean, it still is bad, right? Like I still
Yep.
made some terrible choices,
Yep.
but it's different when you hear it in context. I guess most things are, right? But
Yeah.
especially with my situation.
There's black and white, but nothing really ever is truly black and white. Some version of gray areas. I I didn't get into that much trouble, but there's still even things like, well, yeah, things could have went the wrong way with me just being
Right.
not doing smart stuff, and that could put me in a situation that's actually happened to my brother where, yep, no, it's the smartest way of doing stuff. If they would have avoided that, even with all the other stupid stuff that has been done, like where a lot of us are a small step away from accidentally doing something or
Yeah.
doing something that we wish to take back. And yeah, there's rules and laws, and once you cross those things, that becomes a situation. But yeah, a lot of gray area, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are like, "Yep, never got in trouble, but easily could have for something, right? At some point,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe it would have been something minimal, but yours obviously was a bigger deal. I spent a lot of time, but that also means that the fact that you put in the work to make this huge leap into a career shows a lot of growth. And so I'm sure that went into it too, right? So it's not only the circumstances of that situation, but like what have you done since? How have you changed? And between 18 and however old you are now, like that's we're so different than when we were
Yeah.
teenagers,
Yeah.
right?
So different.
Yep.
So different.
So yeah, that's crazy that it didn't come up until then, but then you had kind of that in, and that helps having a network, right? Just having people that will vouch for you, whether you have a background or not. Like that's what leads to most people getting jobs these days, especially
Yes.
with the job market being a lot tighter. Tell me a little bit about the nonprofit that you're a part of, and this could be like a little sales thing. I actually asked you to record something. We couldn't do that right now, so yeah, give me Give me a little bit of information about Underdog Devs.
Yeah, so Underdog Devs is a nonprofit that I'm part of. I started it in I think right around when I got my job, 2020, maybe before that, maybe the end of 19. I don't remember. It started as just so when I got hired, I made a post about it, and a lot of people reached out wanting to know how I got hired, and they've been felons, and so I told them I would help them, and we all got on like just basically a text group chat, and like I would give advice, we would like talk, we would have meetings, and it was just like group of about 5 people. One of them actually ended up is still in Underdog Devs. Actually, two of them are. But anyways, so we would hang out and just that's all it was like I didn't think I had any secret sauce to like get anyone hired, right? But like I would give them my opinions and here's what worked for me and whatever. I'm more opinionated now that I've been around it. I've
Yep.
seen how people get hired and I've like actually done it. But at the time, I was like, yeah, I can try to help, like what I think will work. And so kind of like from there, I realized the big deal is who you know, like you mentioned. It's your network, it's
Yep.
connecting. Relationships are hugely important. Obviously, you have to have the skill, right? Like if you have no
Sure.
skill, you
Yep.
have no skill, there people are gonna know. But once you get to like a base level skill, it's who you know to get the interview. Usually people know who they want on teams. They already have guys in mind or girls in
Yep.
mind, and they're just, whatever. And so like you got to build relationships at least. And how do you build relationships? So that's where that came into was like basically get around people,
Yep.
interact with people. I don't care
Yep.
where these software engineers are, get around them, talk to them, hang out with them, go to meetups, go to whatever. Well, what I realized was with my group of people that I was talking to was they didn't have contacts like that, just like I did when I got out. I didn't know
Yep.
anybody when I first got out. I eventually found out that my friend's wife worked at a place that actually hires software engineers. But before that, I had no idea. I didn't know anybody. It's literally just had to build my network on Twitter. And so, which is what I did. And with them, I was like, well, I already have a network. Why don't we just use them? So I would message people just to see if they would help. I'm like, hey, I got a group of people.
Yeah.
Would you like to help? And it's so many people were like, oh yeah, like let me
That's
help.
all.
Yeah, so I'm basically asking all the people who know way more than me, who are
Yep.
way more connected than me,
Yep.
basically people that can help them more than I can help them. And
Yep.
it like blew up, and we had a meeting at Big Nerd Ranch, and Big Nerd Ranch is a digital consultancy. They build apps and websites for people, and they have different contracts and stuff. I actually ended up working for them later, but at this
That's
time,
why it rings a bell for me, I think, because I either saw when you guys were meeting up there at one point way back when, or yeah, just saw that you used to work there.
well, that's when we had a big meeting and a ton of them. I had messaged them and they were like, "Yeah, we'd love to help you with start this thing." And somebody there mentioned they're like, "Why don't you start a Slack and start a group out of it so that everyone can communicate?" So we did that. Then we started the Slack,
Nice.
and in the Slack, then we're like, "Hey, why don't we come up with a name and like actually like turn it into like an organization?" And it kind of sprung from that. People like Dan Morsey, Ben Goldkey, Jessica McKellar, they kind of turned it into something bigger. And yeah, it kind of just blew up from there. We did like a really early, we did not a conference. I wouldn't call it a conference, but it was lots of talks by software engineers, particularly in the Apple space, Apple ecosystem, like
Mhm.
using the Swift programming language. And we asked people that were like, and some of them are like in other spaces, people like Natter Dabbit or like even someone like Chris Latner, for example, he came and he had a talk. Like he literally created Swift, right? Like so we had all these awesome
Holy
people
moly.
that I
That's
was just yeah, I was like randomly messaging and thinking like they're not going to respond to nobody, but they did, right? Like they're
Yep.
just cool. A lot of them are just cool people and they just want
That's
to help.
wow.
Yeah, so so it kind of helped us. It buoyed and got us a little more exposure than it would have. That and on top of that, with Jessica, that's like a mission of hers already, Jessica
Okay.
McKellar, and she like took it on as her baby, and kind of like she added some legitimacy to it early on.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and so yeah, I think a lot of the success is due to that, due to her coming on, and due to like people saying yes early on for those talks because it was a whole month of we called it Spring into Swift, and it was a whole
Yeah.
month of like April or something. I don't know whatever whenever it was, and so that attracted a lot of people, and we got a lot of exposure, and it kind of blew up from there.
That's awesome ones. It just speaks exactly to what we've been mentioning like the last few minutes here is like network, community, relationship.
Yeah, yeah,
You 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 said connected with people that are gonna help them actually more than you would. Because at that point, you're, like, months into it, even
Yeah.
that only a couple of years into it, but yet yeah, all these kinda big hitters, and the reason why people are happy to help is because you weren't saying, "Help me, like, help myself." You're like, "I wanna help people. I don't know how. I'm not gonna be able to
Yeah.
help the same way." And so it's because you weren't asking for something for yourself, and
Right.
so it made it really easy to be like, "Man, this guy's sacrificing his time and energy to help other people when he's not even like, he's still, like, trying to figure out his own stuff and get established in his career." So I'm sure that just inspired a lot of people to be like, whether or not it was you specifically, but or just kind of like your story that they just like, "Man, let's get this ball rolling here." What's has been the kind of biggest benefit that you've seen being a part of Underdog Devs? Like, what you didn't start it to help yourself, but what's been the biggest impact to you?
Oh, it's been hugely impactful in ways I never suspected. Like I never in a million years would have thought that the thing was going to help me with like give me just some amazing contacts, like it's given me some amazing allowed me to meet people I wouldn't have met.
Yeah,
It allowed me to be like obviously everyone likes helping people, or most people like, changing people's lives, or if you can be a part of that, most people like that, so like that obviously without, it's I guess what I'm saying is like that's obvious that that part has been rewarding.
yeah,
But even more than that was like personally, it's been super helpful because there's been a couple events where I relied on with the community and things like getting a job, for example.
yeah,
Getting like I've got lots of friends that have like they'll refer me, if I ask, they're gonna refer me anywhere, like
yep,
whether it be Facebook or wherever. I probably should put in some time to get on Leak Code so they can get a job. And I should make the jump at some point because I have the ability to get these referrals because,
yep,
friends I've met there. And so I wouldn't have met all these people had we not all, come together to try to build this thing. And then, although this doesn't matter, and I didn't do it on purpose, when my wife was diagnosed with cancer, we were having to stay in hotels constantly.
yeah,
And it was rough. It was like financially, it was really rough on us. At that point, she had quit working. She wasn't able, which was fine. I didn't want her to have to work. It was
yep,
stressful. She was working for a firm that was very stressful. So she
mhm,
walked away from that. But we were in financial problems. And so my brother ran a GoFundMe
yeah,
and I shared it. And like there was, I want to say $60,000 raised. It was a
wow,
lot of money.
yeah,
And like 90% of it were people from Twitter and Underdog Devs. It was
yeah,
wild, like
that's
90%.
man,
They shared it on their Facebook. They shared it. My brother and my wife shared it in all kinds of other areas. And it was like nearly everyone was people,
yeah,
like it was just like, wow. I didn't realize like what an awesome, I mean, I knew it was an awesome
yeah,
network. And I
yep,
knew a lot of these people are awesome and they help a lot, but I didn't realize it was like that cool. Yeah, they raise a lot of money. And
yep,
Amanda would constantly say that too. She would look at, she'd read, she'd go, another one of your people. Cause she'd know if she didn't know him, it had to be one of my people.
yeah,
So I
yep,
would look and usually it was someone I knew from
yep.
Twitter or from Underdog Devs.
That's amazing. I just got goosebumps from you saying that. It's super happy, easily a reflection of you and what people think of you and Amanda. So yeah, it's not like people were just doing it for no reasons. Like they know who you are. They know how important the situation was, everything you guys were going through, and
Right.
obviously there was only so much people could do to help. And so if that was one way, they can just try to make it a little bit more joyful for you guys to be able to navigate the hotel stay and all of that. Yeah, definitely feel for you guys and everything. Going back 10 years.
Mhm.
So we were talking about going back 10 years and what you were thinking, but if you had to go like you now, you time travel and you say, hey, younger Rick, still young. What kind of things would you kind of impart on a younger version of yourself?
As far as like what to look forward to, or like, because I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what I would take back with me other than, I don't know. It probably would be like, because what dominates my mind whenever anyone says anything like that
Mm,
is like relational stuff. Cause, my wife passed. So, like,
yep,
stuff like that. Like, hey, spend time with her.
yeah,
Success will come. Success is going to happen, but use your time wisely. Don't grind, all day, every day. And I did that, like she'd be in the bed sleeping and I'd be in there reading and studying and coding and like
Yep.
trying to get myself together. Cause like I had never used a smartphone at that time when I got out.
Crazy.
I had got a little taste of programming, but it was in a very stale, it wasn't like I had never used a smartphone. I was like technologically illiterate.
Yep.
So for me to get to the point where I could build apps and get paid to build apps, it took a lot of grind and tenacity. But I would probably say something like, "Hey, ease up a little bit," because I
Yep.
didn't know I was going to lose her. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it would probably be something like that. But as far as like getting ahead, I think I'd just do the same thing. Like do what you can to work, but also get to the point where you're getting paid to learn. I would do that same thing again. Build relationships. I like people, so like that came naturally for me. I'm better at that than I am programming. So,
Yeah. Which
like,
which is a way better talent and skill to have for sure.
yeah, like if you like, because I like people, so going to meetups and stuff was good. I might focus a little more on a different subject matter now, but I'm sure everyone says this, right? Like when you see something blow up, you're like, oh, I should have learned that. Like I would focus a little more on machine learning, maybe go a little further in schooling, higher order maths and stuff, and try to like so that I could have because I just feel like that's the future.
Yep.
There's a lot of I just think it's going to be an interesting future, and I'm kind of pigeonholed now into what I do. Not a bad thing, right? Like I love the how things turned out. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you get niche, it means that you're good at what you do, and then it'll be
right,
easy for you to find something for those roles specifically. But yeah, it's hard to say, right? There's so many hot things. It seems like every couple months, I was like, well, is it really going to be like the next big thing, or is that going to be where all like all not all, but all the crypto space, all of the NFT stuff, those things have blown up, and so people that poured everything into those, probably not like at the time, right? They felt like, oh, this is the next big thing. They'll probably still be there, and there's room for some of them, just not probably at the level that they were. Now it's AI. Probably makes sense that this will actually be around a little bit longer, more sustainable. That people have been working on AI, trying to figure that out for so long. So yeah, maybe that makes more sense, but it's hard in those moments to know what truly is going to be the next thing. And
right.
oh, what I don't do this too often, but yeah, what do you kind of envision for your future? Like you see yourself pivoting at some point down the road, 5, 10 years into the future?
I've actually been going through that lately, wondering, like, am I going to continue down the individual contributor as a programmer, or with back to like my wife passing? It made it kind of hard to concentrate lately over the
Yeah,
last like 4 or 5 months,
yeah,
and so 4 months, and so it's I've questioned whether or not like do I want to do this
hmm,
right? Where because it takes a lot of concentration.
yeah,
Programming takes a lot of like focus. It's not overly complicated, but it does take a lot of concentration, and so there are times where I'm like, I really would like some low like light mental work, like easier, shallower stuff right now. It'd be nice. And so it's made me consider like, do I want to keep doing this? You know what I mean? Where it takes like a mental, like that much of mental effort, or do I want to move into something different? And one thing that's come up that also kind of it intersects with other goals I have as a company, like start a
yeah,
company that would benefit underdog devs and help pay for rather than rely on donations for like Project Underdog and for the stipends. Rather
yep,
than that, instead start a company like a B Corp that's dedicated to a certain percentage that goes back to underdog devs.
yeah,
And that way just run the company,
yep.
and like run the company and from there try to fund underdog devs through that.
That's exciting. And yeah, so speaking of that, is a perfect way to kind of wrap up the episode. How can people support underdog devs? So they heard your story, they heard about underdog devs. If people are inspired to kind of contribute and give back, what ways can they do that?
Yeah. So we have our website, underdogdevs.org. You can reach out through there. We have PayPal, or you can just wire us money. We have our bank information there. So you can do that. We also, not just financially, but if you want to support us through like hardware, old computers,
Awesome.
well, reach out to me. I'm trying to think of the best way. Probably Twitter at RWoltX, or you can email me, Rick at underdogdevs.org. So we're always looking for hardware and mentors, of course. If
Yeah.
you're a software engineer and you want to help mentor and you want to guide and help change somebody's life, reach out. And if someone's in need, obviously they could reach out. Someone's formerly incarcerated or from lower socioeconomic background and who wants to become a software engineer, yeah, reach out. Really, anyway, to me directly on Twitter or to the website, underdogdevs.org. You can sign up to a mentor or a mentee. So yeah, lots of different ways: volunteering, hardware, or financially you want to sponsor. And just to be clear, none of the money goes to any of us that run it. We don't
Yep.
take salaries. We don't take a dime.
Yeah,
And
you
we
guys
did it
give
on purpose.
stipend for the mentees, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, we make sure the money goes directly to expand access to people who maybe wouldn't get access. And we're talking not everyone in there, but the people that once you're part of Underdog Devs, then you have the ability to sign up for Project Underdog.
Yep.
That's where you get your bills paid for 4 months. We surround you with mentors. You get pair programming all week, and we try to get you at a point where you're not having to work. You can focus on studying. All
Yep.
right, just like we talked about in the beginning. Get to
Yep,
the
yep.
point where you can just study. Like you can learn and practice. So yeah, none of the money goes to any of us. We don't take salaries. It all goes to the mentees' stipends.
Awesome. Well, that's amazing. I'm so thankful that we were able to find time to have you on today, Rick. Anything else before we jump off and end today's episode?
No, I just want to thank you, Lucas, for being so cool and supportive. You've I've known you for a while on social through Twitter
Yeah.
and followed you for a while. And that's super awesome, man. Appreciate everything you've done. I'm sure a ton of people don't know, you've donated, not for anyone else's interest. You just for us, just, not to try to be known. You did it you did it on the slide. No one even knew it, and it was kind of cool. We really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate everything you're doing. I come from a background of being a minority in a space where there's not many minorities or people that look like me, and so I can only imagine it has to be pretty similar, right? Having a unique background like yours, and there's a lot of people that need you kind of as that beacon, and that's really what you were in those early days. Like you said, you weren't adding a ton of benefits as far as dropping gems left and right early on, but it was like you were a beacon of hope, and that's all people need to kind of take those first couple of steps and move in that motion. And yeah, you've experienced, you've lived the experience of life altering, life changing kind of opportunities. And so super glad that we were able to meet in the first place way back when, have a couple of opportunities, have conversations in the meantime, and then kind of summing it up today. This isn't going to be the last time we talk, but up until this point, it's really amazing to know you and to kind of see the impact that you're not only making for your family and kind of improving yourself, but on the impact you're making on others. It's super inspiring.
Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for listening to Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp. You can find show notes by visiting levelupfinancialplanning.com and finding the podcast page. You'll also be able to find strategy guides, videos, and cheat sheets to help you take your financial confidence to the next level. If you feel this episode has added a ton of value for you, please rate and share this with friends and colleagues. Catch you next time on Techie Personal Finance Bootcamp.